So here's a controversy I missed over the break. This is from last week, and maybe you heard about it, or maybe you value your own sanity, so you instead took a break from news and social media over Christmas and didn't hear about it. Whichever the case, Nikki Haley got herself into trouble because of an answer that she gave at a town hall about the Civil War. Well, the town hall was not about the Civil War, but there was a question about the Civil War. I don't know why this question was asked. I mean, I don't know why, you have a chance to ask a question to a presidential candidate and you're asking them about a historical event from 150 years ago. I'm not sure why that would be your question, but it was. And the question was specifically, what was the cause of the Civil War? And here is what Nikki Haley came up with on her first try. And there were many more tries after this, but here was her first try. Let's watch.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I want to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And then in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me, and you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
You answered my question. Thank you.
Next question.
Okay, so she did not say that the Civil War was caused by slavery, and then she was asked about, it's kind of hard to hear what the guy's saying exactly, but you can take context clues. She was asked again about slavery, and then she says, next question. Like she's trying to dodge it. like she's afraid to just say, yeah, slavery is a terrible thing. But it's awful. I'm opposed to slavery. I don't like, put me in the anti-camp when it comes to slavery. She didn't want to say that, so instead she said, next question. And this set off several days of controversy and outrage, the corporate media and also the establishment right. Usually defend Nikki Haley. Usually they're big Nikki Haley fans, but on this one, they turned on her and they went after her. And so over the next few days, she made multiple attempts to kind of clean up the mess. But she really didn't make things much better for herself. So here she was, I think this was a day later, and here she is addressing the controversy and sort of trying again with an answer. Let's watch that.
I guess if you grow up in the South, it's a given that it's about slavery. To me, it was about freedom. What do you do? It's bigger than slavery. That was such a stain on our history. But what do you take from it going forward? Yes, of course, slavery can never happen again. But going forward, doesn't that mean we should focus on the freedoms of people to live their life, not to have government, not to have any other person tell them what they can and can't do? That's been trampled on the past few years. That's the part we've got to make sure we never take anything away from. So look, I mean, you guys can make it about something else, but if you look at my record in South Carolina, we dealt with this a whole lot more than this. And what I'll tell you is, yes, you can acknowledge a point in history, but what do you do with that point in history? You got to make sure the lessons constantly go forward so that we never see it again.
I mean, that's mostly word salad. Like, if you were to look at a transcript of what she just said, you wouldn't even know where to place punctuation because it's so rambling and nonsensical. But she does at least say that slavery shouldn't happen again. So we have her. Nikki Haley breaks her silence about slavery, and she is so now we know that she is in the she does oppose slavery. She doesn't want to reinstate slavery. So that's good because we weren't sure. We definitely weren't sure. And it's all kind of funny because her answers are so incredibly stupid. And she kind of reminds me of that clip of what was it, the Miss America contestant from like 15 years ago, or whatever pageant it was, trying to talk about geography. That infamous clip. So she reminds me of that a little bit, just totally clueless. And that's what you're seeing with Nikki Haley here. Everyone is accusing her of refusing to mention slavery because she's some kind of Confederate sympathizer. And that is obviously not the case, okay? And I'm not a Nikki Haley defender myself, but I will say, even though I don't like Nikki Haley, I will say I feel relatively certain that she is not in favor of slavery. And she's also not a secret Confederate sympathizer. Like, I don't think if you went to her house, you would find a room full of Confederate flags and memorabilia that she keeps in a secret vault somewhere. I don't think that. I mean, she put herself on the map politically by removing Confederate flags from the South Carolina state capitol. She has long been a champion of tearing down flags and statues. She worshipped at the BLM altar during George Floyd. So she would have no problem giving the standard sort of acceptable answer to that question and, saying that the Civil War is about slavery and nothing else. I don't think she was trying to pander to who knows what demographic. I don't think that's what was happening there. I think she's just an airhead. And that's it. Like, the truth is, she really doesn't know anything about the Civil War. So I think when she was asked that question, she panicked. Not because she's afraid to talk about slavery, but because she probably doesn't even know what century the Civil War was fought in. And it's not just her, by the way. Okay, it's like most politicians. Last year, because of you, Preborn's network of clinics saved over 58,000 babies. Thank you to all who made this possible. Let's celebrate these precious babies.
My name is Janet. I just want to share a little experience with you throughout my pregnancy. I am 32 weeks pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 7 weeks. My pregnancy was an unplanned situation. I was unplanned, but my boyfriend, he always needed a child, and abortion was in the back of my mind, but I know if I did, that would ruin our relationship. But doing my first ultrasound, seeing my baby girl moving, and hearing the heartbeat, it was so overwhelming. It was a joy for us. Both of us were happy, we were excited. We can't wait to welcome our baby girl into this world. And I want to thank Mission Preborn for the ultrasound. I thank you for everything that you have done for us. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
When Charlotte found out she was pregnant, she was 7 weeks along. In the back of her mind, she thought abortion was the best solution. She went into a preborn clinic, and after hearing her baby's heartbeat and seeing her beautiful baby on ultrasound, she chose life. Her heart is filled with gratitude for all of you who made this possible. Each of these babies are truly miraculous, and every day Preborn celebrates 200 miracles. Just $28 a month can be the difference between the life and death of a child. When a mother meets her baby on ultrasound and hears their heartbeat, it's a divine connection that doubles a baby's chance at life. So let's join together and help mothers choose life. To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/Matt. That's preborn.com/Matt. Think about your favorite childhood memory that you caught on film or videotape. Do you have an easy way to watch it or share it with friends and family? If you're like most people, you probably don't. And lucky for you, we have found a solution with Legacy Box. Legacy Box makes this easy to do. Simply send your Legacy Box filled with camcorder tapes, film reels, and pictures. Get back digital copies that can be easily enjoyed, shared, and organized. It's like magic. It's that easy. Legacy Box is the world's largest digitizer. They've helped over 1 million families relive their wedding days, chaotic childhood Christmases, and even road trips to Yellowstone. And by going to legacybox.com/Matt, you can enjoy 50% off when you get started with Legacy Box today. Kick off their new year by rescuing your family's most cherished memories that haven't been watched or enjoyed in years. Go to legacybox.com/Matt to save 50%. Buy today. Send it in when you're ready. Go to legacybox.com/Matt. That's legacybox.com/Matt. One thing you have to understand is that most of our politicians, not all of them, but most of them, are actually very stupid. These are not intelligent people. This is probably, if we could do an IQ test of everybody in the Senate right now, in the House, everyone in Congress, let's say, do an IQ test, I doubt on average that they break 85, okay? So they're like barely above room temperature with their IQ. And that's what you saw there. It's not any secret thing where she's racist. No, she just doesn't know. She was way over her skis. The moment someone brought up the Civil War, she was way over her skis and she knew it. And that's why she tried to pivot back. Well, what do you think? I don't know. What's your opinion? It's that classic tactic. I tried that myself when I was a kid and get a pop quiz. And I'd ask a question by my teacher. I said, what do you think? You tell me what your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts first. Then I'll let you know. Also, being an establishment GOP type, she instinctively wants to tie everything back to establishment GOP talking points. And that's why she went on about the role of government and freedom and capitalism. I mean, the role of government and capitalism had nothing to do with the Civil War, okay? They were not fighting over capitalism. But she ties it back to that because those are the talking points, and it's all she knows, and this is what they do. This is every question. Every question is good. You're going to get something about, the government's too big. And when it's economic freedom, lower taxes. That's it. That's all. Whatever. You could ask her, I don't know, what's the surface temperature of the sun? And she'll give you something about the role of government. All that said, most of her critics on this issue are also wrong, or at least not fully right. Because everyone just wants her to say that slavery was the cause, and that's it. As if that's all that can or should be said about the Civil War. But like literally any other war that's ever been fought anywhere on Earth for the entirety of the history of human civilization, it is more complicated than that. Okay? No war that's ever been fought can be explained with a single word. It just doesn't, the history of the world doesn't work that way. There's always more to it. Which doesn't mean we can't identify good guys and bad guys. I mean, in some wars you can, some wars you can't. We're talking about a broad subject of war here, but all I'm saying is that there has never been a war so simple that if someone asks you what caused it, you can just give them one word, and that's it. And with the Civil War, there was more to it. I mean, obviously slavery was a significant factor, but the division between the North and the South ran deeper than that. But I think more importantly, and this is the important distinction for me when it comes to the Civil War and history of the Civil War and the causes, the motivations rather, really. This is the most important distinction, and this is also the point that should come into play when we're talking about, a statue of Robert E. Lee or something, and whether we should tear it down, and we shouldn't. And the reason that we shouldn't is that there is a distinction to be made in every war, but especially in the Civil War, between the political macro level causes and the personal motivations of the people doing the fighting. So in the macro, slavery was a central cause of the Civil War. It was a well-established historical fact. Individually, however, the men who did the fighting did not consider themselves to be fighting over slavery on either side, for the most part, and especially in the beginning. The men who marched down from the North were, as far as they were concerned, were not going to war to free the slaves. Most of them would not have taken up arms for that purpose. And the men fighting in the South were certainly not going to war, as far as they were concerned, to keep slaves, considering that almost none of them had slaves. I mean, the men who were doing the fighting, these were poor farm boys that, most of them didn't have shoes, okay? They didn't have slaves. And they weren't out there bleeding and dying to protect Farmer Jim's plantation down the street and the slave. That's not what they were. That's not what moves people to fight and to die in such desperate situations. The men from the North thought of themselves as fighting to preserve the Union, and the men from the South thought of themselves as fighting to defend their homeland. And if you were to ask them, if you were to go back in a time machine to 1861 and go up and, walk onto the battlefield, which I wouldn't recommend, and ask any of the Confederate soldiers why they're fighting, that's probably the answer they would give. They probably would not say, we want to keep slaves. They would say something like, I'm defending my home. This is my home. Robert E. Lee famously decided to fight for the South rather than being a commander in the North. And he made that decision not because he wanted to keep slaves, but because from his perspective, he needed to defend his home, and he considered his home to be Virginia more than, if he were to think about what's my home, it would be the state of Virginia, not the United States as a whole. That's the way he saw it. That's the way he thought of it. That's the way most people thought of it back in those days. And that's what I'm talking about right now is not some like deep, brilliant insight. This is just the general understanding that the insight of like, that most people have understood for, almost since the World War was fought. And that's why most people, up until recently, have not had much of a problem with the statue of Robert E. Lee, the building named after him, because they were able to separate, even if they wouldn't have explained it in quite these terms, they were able to separate the macro political causes from the men themselves. And they were able to understand that that this was not a cartoon being fought. This was not a cartoon. These were not cartoonish villains. These were human beings, and their motivations and what drove them was far more complex than what we like to pretend today. So, anyway, Nikki Haley could have said something like that, but I guess I'm not surprised that she didn't. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.